The infinite dynasty spanned countless universes, all under the iron rule of Empress Nian. Her immortal existence transcended time and space, her authority absolute and unquestioned. For 30 billion years, she had maintained a peaceful reign, though only a few underdeveloped civilizations remained scattered across the vast expanse of her domain. Countless black holes, time-space magic currents, and celestial phenomena decorated her empire like jewels on a crown that no mortal could ever hope to wear. The Void Palace stood at the convergence of all realities, a structure built not of matter, but of cosmic laws themselves. Its spiraling towers reached into dimensions unseen by mortal eyes, and its foundations extended into the very fabric of existence. Within its grand hall, the Empress sat upon her eternal throne, gazing through portals that showed her every corner of her multiverse. Her features remained perfect and unchanging as they had been for billions of years. Eyes that contained galaxies, skin that shimmered with the light of 1,000 suns, and hair that flowed like the cosmic rivers between universes. Another millennium passes, she whispered to herself, her voice causing ripples in the fabric of reality around her. And still, nothing changes. The Empress had seen civilizations rise and fall, stars born and extinguished, entire galaxies collide and merge. She had outlived all who had known her before her ascension. The weight of eternity pressed upon her, though she would never admit such weakness, even to herself. Her court of celestial advisors, beings of pure energy who had served her for billions of years, hovered silently around her throne, awaiting commands that rarely came anymore. In the early days of her reign, the court had been filled with voices, debates, and the vibrant exchange of cosmic ideas. Now, only silence prevailed. "Your Eternal Majesty," spoke one advisor, a shimmering blue entity named Tien. "The seventh universe in the Andromeda sector reports unusual temporal fluctuations." The Empress waved her hand dismissively. "A routine realignment of quantum strings. It will stabilize within a millennium." "As you say, your eternity," Tien responded, fading back into formation with the other advisors. The truth, which the Empress would never confess, was that she had grown weary. 30 billion years of existence had drained the novelty from creation. She had explored every corner of her domain, mastered every form of cosmic magic, and conquered every potential rival. The universe held no more surprises for her. Or so she thought. In a distant, forgotten arm of one universe, so inconsequential that it barely warranted a designation in the imperial registry, a scholar named Min Kai traveled between struggling colonies. He carried with him ancient texts and artifacts, sharing knowledge with those who sought it, unassuming and humble. He appeared to be nothing more than a wandering academic, one of countless billions of mortals who lived and died beneath the Empress's eternal gaze. But Min Kai possessed something unique, something that even the all-seeing eyes of the Empress had overlooked. Among his collection of ancient texts was a fragment of knowledge from a civilization so old that even the Empress's imperial records barely acknowledged its existence. This civilization had been the first to reach for the stars, the first to unlock the secrets of time and space, and the first to fall before the Empress's rise to power. The fragment contained a single word in a language that had not been spoken for billions of years. A word that, when uttered with understanding, could unravel the very foundations of imperial power. The forgotten word. Min Kai had spent decades studying this fragment, deciphering its meaning through comparison with other ancient texts. He did not seek power or revolution, he sought only knowledge. But knowledge, as the ancients knew, was the most dangerous force in the multiverse. On a small research outpost orbiting a dying star, Min Kai met with a group of scholars who shared his passion for pre-imperial history. Their discussion was animated, academic, and, they believed, entirely private. "The Empress's reign began with the Great Convergence," said an elderly scholar named Tom. "All historical records agree on this point." "But what caused the convergence?" Min Kai asked, his voice soft but penetrating. The imperial histories claim it was a natural cosmic event that the Empress simply harnessed, but I've found evidence suggesting otherwise. He carefully unfolded the ancient fragment, its surface shimmering with a light that seemed to come from within the material itself, rather than reflecting from outside. This text suggests that the first spacefaring civilization, the originators, discovered something fundamental about the nature of reality, a principle so profound that it could restructure the cosmos itself. The scholars leaned forward, their eyes wide with academic interest. None of them harbored revolutionary thoughts. They were simply seekers of truth in a universe where truth had become whatever the Empress declared it to be. The principle was encoded in a word, Min-Kai continued. A word that, when spoken with true understanding, could rewrite the laws of physics within its speaker's influence. Impossible, whispered one scholar. Language cannot affect physical reality. Unless, Min-Kai countered, physical reality is itself a form of language. What if the universe is a narrative, and this word is a command that can edit the story? The gathered academics fell silent, contemplating this heretical idea. Then, almost casually, Min-Kai spoke the word. It was a simple sound, neither long nor complex. To most ears, it would have seemed unremarkable. But as it left his lips, something in the fabric of reality trembled. A ripple spread outward, invisible but profoundly disruptive, traveling faster than light across the cosmos. In her void palace, the Empress suddenly stiffened on her throne. For the first time in billions of years, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Fear. What was that? She demanded, rising to her feet. The cosmic portals around her throne flickered and distorted. Her advisors swirled in confusion, their energy forms pulsating with alarm. A disturbance, your eternity. Tien reported, origin unknown, effects uncertain. The Empress's face, perfect and unchanging for eons, showed a flicker of emotion. Find the source, she commanded. Immediately. Across the multiverse, her vast network of phantom guardians, beings of pure temporal energy who served as her eyes and ears, began searching for the disturbance's origin. It took them mere moments to trace the ripple back to its source, an insignificant research outpost where a group of scholars had gathered for what they thought was an academic discussion. The Empress watched through a cosmic portal as Min-Kai carefully refolded the ancient fragment and tucked it away. She saw nothing remarkable about him, just another mortal scholar with a passion for history. Yet he had somehow caused a disturbance that she had felt across the entire multiverse. Bring him to me, she commanded. Alive and unharmed, I wish to understand what he has done. The order echoed across dimensions, and the phantom guardians moved to obey. Min-Kai sensed nothing amiss as he left the gathering of scholars. He returned to his modest quarters, unaware that his academic exploration had shaken the foundations of the most powerful being in existence. He spent the evening reviewing his notes, trying to understand why speaking the word had created a strange sensation in the air around him. He had not expected any physical effect. He had merely been demonstrating a linguistic curiosity to his colleagues. As he prepared for sleep, shadows deepened in the corners of his room. The air grew heavy with a presence that defied natural explanation. Min-Kai looked up from his notes to find himself surrounded by shimmering, translucent figures, the phantom guardians of the Empress. Min-Kai, spoke their leader, its voice a whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The Eternal Empress commands your presence at the time-space court. Min-Kai stared in shock. Few mortals were ever summoned to the legendary time-space court, the center of all magical arts in the multiverse. Fewer still returned to tell of it. What offense have I committed? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. That is not for us to know or explain, replied the Guardian. You will come now. Min-Kai knew he had no choice. The Guardians could extract his consciousness from his body if he refused, transporting his mind alone to face the Empress, a fate far worse than physical travel. He quickly gathered his most precious texts, including the fragment containing the forgotten word, and nodded his readiness. The journey to the time-space court transcended conventional movement. Reality folded around Min-Kai. compressing vast cosmic distances into a single step. Stars streaked past him like raindrops on glass. Galaxies swirled like eddies in a stream, and the very fabric of space-time warped to accommodate his passage. Then, with a sensation like emerging from deep water, Min Kai found himself standing at the entrance to the most legendary structure in all the multiverse, the time-space court of the eternal Empress. The court existed simultaneously in all dimensions and none. Its architecture defied conventional geometry, with spires that curved back upon themselves and hallways that somehow always led both inward and outward at once. The walls shifted between solid matter and pure energy, decorated with moving images of cosmic events from across the span of time. Min Kai was led through corridors where gravity changed direction with each step, past chambers where time flowed backward, and through gardens where extinct species from a trillion worlds grew in impossible harmony. Scholars spent lifetimes dreaming of glimpsing such wonders, yet Min Kai could barely process what he was seeing before being hurried onward. Finally, they reached the grand audience chamber, where the Empress received those rare beings deemed worthy of her direct attention. The chamber expanded beyond what Min Kai's eyes could perceive, its ceiling a perfect recreation of the cosmos itself, with real stars and galaxies moving in their eternal dance. And there, seated upon a throne carved from the heart of a neutron star, was the eternal Empress herself. Min Kai had seen images of the Empress. Of course, her likeness was displayed on every inhabited world, her perfect features known to all her subjects. But those representations captured nothing of her true presence. In person, she radiated power that made the air around her shimmer. Her eyes contained spiraling galaxies, and her skin glowed with the light of cosmic creation. Her dress seemed woven from the very fabric of space-time, shifting and flowing with patterns that suggested mathematical perfection. "Approach, scholar," she commanded, her voice resonating at a frequency that made Min Kai's bones vibrate. He stepped forward, feeling the weight of her attention like a physical force pressing down upon him. The phantom guardians dissolved into the shadows, leaving him alone before the most powerful being in existence. "You have caused a disturbance in my realm," the Empress stated, not an accusation, but a simple declaration of fact. "Explain yourself." Min Kai swallowed hard. "Your Eternal Majesty, I am but a humble scholar. If I have caused any disturbance, it was unintentional and done in ignorance." The Empress leaned forward slightly, her eyes focusing on him with an intensity that made him feel as though she were examining his very atoms. "You spoke a word," she said. "An ancient word. I felt its power echo across my domains. Where did you learn this word?" Min Kai hesitated. The imperial prohibition against pre-convergence studies was well known, if rarely enforced. Scholars generally avoided the subject out of tradition rather than fear. But standing before the Empress herself, the weight of potential transgression felt suddenly real. "I study ancient languages, your eternity," he said carefully. "In my research, I discovered fragments of text from before the Great Convergence. One fragment contained this word, which I believe to be of linguistic interest only." "Show me," the Empress commanded. With trembling hands, Min Kai withdrew the ancient fragment from his collection and held it up. The Empress made no move to take it, but the fragment rose from his hands, floating across the space between them to hover before her eyes. As she gazed upon it, something extraordinary happened. For the briefest moment, the perfect composure of the eternal Empress faltered. A flicker of recognition, and was that fear, crossed her ageless features. "This should not exist," she whispered, almost to herself. Then, more loudly, "Where did you find this?" "In the ruins of Za, on the outer rim of the Sagittarius Arm," Min Kai replied. "A civilization that, according to imperial records, destroyed itself through misuse of dimensional energies." "The imperial records are correct," the Empress said sharply. "They always are." But Min Kai, despite his fear, could not suppress his scholar's instinct for truth. "With deepest respect, your eternity. The physical evidence I found suggests otherwise. The ruins show signs of external attack, not internal collapse. The air in the chamber grew heavy, charged with potential energy. The cosmic display above them darkened, stars winking out as though in response to the Empress's displeasure. "You question imperial history?" she asked, her voice dangerously soft. "I seek only to understand," Minkai replied, knowing his life hung on his next words. "Knowledge is the foundation of your glorious empire. I serve that foundation in my small way." For a long moment, the Empress studied him in silence. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled, a gesture so rare that legends said it could cause supernovas in distant galaxies. "Few mortals would dare speak so honestly in my presence," she said. "Fewer still would pursue knowledge that contradicts imperial doctrine. Your courage interests me, scholar." She waved her hand, and the fragment returned to Min Kai. "You will remain at my court as my guest. You will share all you have learned about this ancient civilization and the word you discovered. In return, I may share truths that no mortal has heard in billions of years." Min Kai bowed deeply, overwhelmed by this unexpected turn. "I am honored beyond words. Your eternity." "Yes," the Empress said, her smile fading. "But know this, scholar. If you speak that word again within my realm without my explicit permission, the consequences will transcend your mortal capacity for suffering. Do you understand?" "Perfectly, your eternity." "Good. My guardians will show you to appropriate quarters. We shall speak again soon." As Min Kai was led away, the Empress remained on her throne, her expression unreadable. When the chamber had emptied, she raised her hand, creating a portal to a dimension that even her closest advisors did not know existed. Through this portal lay a chamber preserved unchanged for 30 billion years, a memorial to the first civilization she had ever destroyed. The civilization that had discovered the principles upon which her power was built, and which had tried to prevent her rise. "After all this time," she whispered to the empty air, "your final weapon has found its way back to me. But this time, I will not be caught unprepared." The portal closed, and the Empress of a trillion years sat alone with memories that no other living being shared. Memories of a time when she had been mortal, vulnerable, and afraid. Days at the time-space court passed strangely for Min Kai. In some chambers, a conversation might last seconds but consume days of outside time. In others, one might spend what felt like weeks in study, only to discover that mere minutes had passed in the outer world. He was given luxurious quarters that adapted to his preferences before he could even articulate them, and access to libraries containing knowledge that mortal scholars had speculated about for eons. But he was not free. The phantom guardians watched him constantly, their translucent forms always visible at the corners of his vision. And he had not been summoned again to the Empress's presence, despite her promise of further conversation. Instead, he was visited by members of the Court of Celestial Advisors. They questioned him extensively about his discoveries, his research methods, and his understanding of the forgotten word. Min Kai answered honestly but carefully, sensing that these interviews served a purpose beyond mere information gathering. On what he believed to be his 7th day at the court, he was approached by Tien, the blue entity he had glimpsed during his audience with the Empress. "The scholar seeks knowledge," Tien observed, its form pulsating with subtle energy patterns that suggested curiosity. "It is my life's purpose," Min Kai acknowledged. "Yet you have not asked about the greatest knowledge available to you here, the true nature of the Empress and her power." Min Kai chose his words with care. Some knowledge must be offered, not requested. To demand it would be presumption. Tien's form brightened slightly, which Min Kai interpreted as approval. "Wisdom unusual in a mortal. Perhaps this explains why you have discovered what was meant to remain hidden." "The forgotten word was hidden deliberately?" Min Kai asked, seizing the opening. "All things forgotten were once known," Tien replied cryptically, "but not all forgetting is accidental." Before Min Kai could press further, Tien continued, "The Empress will see you tomorrow. She will take you to the apex of time-space, where realities converge. Few mortals have ever witnessed this place. Prepare yourself. With that, the entity dissolved into the air, leaving Min-Kai with more questions than answers. That night, as he tried to sleep, Min-Kai felt a strange presence in his quarters. Opening his eyes, he found not a phantom guardian, but a small, glittering entity unlike any he had seen before. It resembled a star condensed to the size of his palm, pulsing with warm, golden light. "Who are you?" he whispered. "A time-space guardian," the entity replied, its voice like chimes in his mind. "One of the few who remember the time before the Empress." Min-Kai sat up, fully alert now. "I was told no beings survived from that era." "Nearly none did." The guardian agreed. "I persist because I bound myself to the structure of this court before the Great Convergence. The Empress cannot destroy me without destroying her seat of power." "Why show yourself to me now?" "Because you carry the last hope of balance," the guardian said. "The word you discovered is not merely a word, it is a key that can unlock what was deliberately sealed away." "What was sealed away?" Min-Kai asked, his scholar's curiosity overcoming his caution. "The truth. About the Empress, about the originators, about what really happened 30 billion years ago." The guardian pulsed more intensely. "The Empress will try to convince you that she is the multiverse's rightful ruler, that her ascension was natural and necessary. She will offer you knowledge, power, even a place at her court. Why would she fear me enough to offer such things?" "Because the word you carry cannot be taken by force. It must be surrendered willingly or neutralized through your cooperation. If you speak it with full understanding and intent at the apex of time-space, where all realities meet, her power will be fundamentally challenged for the first time since her ascension." Min-Kai considered this. If her reign has maintained peace for 30 billion years, would challenging it be wise? Wouldn't that risk cosmic chaos? The guardian dimmed slightly. "A valid question. Consider this. Under her, peace. How many civilizations have been allowed to reach their full potential? How many species have been subtly guided into stagnation or extinction because they might one day challenge her? The multiverse was not meant to have a single, eternal ruler. Cosmic balance requires change, renewal. And yes, sometimes, conflict." Before Min-Kai could respond, the guardian pulsed in alarm. "The phantom guards approach. I must go. Remember, at the apex, you will face a choice that will determine the fate of realities beyond counting. Choose with both your mind and your heart." The entity vanished just as the door to Min-Kai's quarters slid open, revealing the shifting form of a phantom guardian. "The Empress summons you now," it announced. "The journey to the apex begins." Sleep forgotten. Min-Kai gathered his belongings, making sure the ancient fragment was secure within his robes. As he followed the guardian through the impossible geometry of the court, his mind raced with questions and doubts. Was the time-space guardian telling the truth? Or was it a test set by the Empress herself? Was he being manipulated by forces beyond his comprehension? And if he truly held power that could challenge the eternal Empress, what right did he, a mere mortal scholar, have to use it? The corridors through which he was led grew increasingly strange. Gravity fluctuated wildly, sometimes disappearing altogether, forcing Min-Kai to push himself along by touching the walls. Light behaved according to laws of physics he had never encountered, splitting into colors he had no names for and casting shadows that moved independently of their sources. Finally, they reached what appeared to be a dead end, a wall of pure darkness that absorbed all light around it. "The Empress awaits within," the Phantom Guardian announced, then dissolved into mist. Taking a deep breath, Min-Kai stepped forward into the darkness. He emerged into a space that defied comprehension. There were no walls, no ceiling, no floor, only an endless expanse of stars and cosmic phenomena spreading in all directions. Yet somehow he stood on solid ground, breathing what felt like normal air. Before him stood the Empress, but not as he had seen her in the grand audience chamber. Here, at what must be the apex of time-space, she had shed her humanoid appearance. Her true form was a being of pure cosmic energy, a swirling vortex of power that retained only the vaguest suggestion of her familiar features. Galaxies spiraled within her form, and the light she emitted shifted through spectrums visible and invisible to mortal eyes. Behold me as I truly am, scholar. Her voice resonated directly in his mind. Few mortals have seen this form and retained their sanity. Min Kai stood in awe, unable to speak. The being before him transcended anything he had imagined, even in his most ambitious conceptions of the Empress's power. This is the apex, she continued, gesturing with an appendage that resembled a stream of stars. The point where all realities converge. From here, I maintain the structure of the multiverse, preventing collapse into chaos. The space around them shifted, and Min Kai found himself looking out at what appeared to be the entire multiverse from above. Countless bubble-like universes, connected by shimmering threads of energy, all pulsating in a complex, synchronized pattern. Before my ascension, the Empress said, these realities existed in violent competition. Universes collided and annihilated each other. Cosmic laws varied wildly between dimensions, making travel and communication impossible. Civilizations rose in isolation, only to be extinguished when their universe collided with another. The view changed, showing catastrophic collisions between universal bubbles, each collision releasing energies that obliterated everything within them. I brought order, the Empress continued. I established consistent cosmic laws across all realities. I created stable pathways between universes. I made possible a multiverse where civilizations could interact, trade, and learn from each other without fear of sudden annihilation. Min Kai found his voice at last. At what cost? Your eternity. The cosmic display around them paused. The Empress's energy form contracted slightly, focusing more intensely on him. Explain your question, scholar. The originators, Min Kai said, emboldened by the fact that he still lived despite his temerity. The first civilization to reach for the stars. Imperial records say they destroyed themselves through hubris, but my research suggests otherwise. Did they oppose your ascension? Did you destroy them to prevent them from sharing what they knew? For a moment, the cosmic energy surrounding the Empress flared dangerously. Min Kai felt the temperature around him rise to nearly unbearable levels, then suddenly drop to near freezing. But he stood his ground, waiting. Finally, the Empress spoke again. You are either exceptionally brave or exceptionally foolish, mortal. But you have earned the truth, or at least part of it. The space around them shifted again, showing a planet orbiting a yellow star, a world that looked remarkably like the ancient descriptions of the mythical birthplace of humanity. The originators were the first to discover the principles that underlie reality. The Empress said, they learned that the multiverse is, at its most fundamental level, a construct of information, a vast narrative written in the language of physics and mathematics, and they discovered that certain expressions in this language could rewrite the narrative itself. Images appeared of beings that looked much like Min Kai himself, humanoid, but dressed in strange attire, working with technologies both familiar and utterly alien. They created a system of words that could alter reality, not through mystical means, but through direct manipulation of the information substrate of existence. The most powerful of these words could redefine fundamental constants, reorganize dimensional structures, even create or destroy entire universes. Min Kai watched as the originator's civilization expanded across their galaxy, using their reality-altering language to transform barren worlds into paradises, to create shortcuts through space-time, to extend their lifespans indefinitely. They believed all sentient beings should have access to this power. The Empress continued, her tone now carrying a hint of something Min Kai couldn't quite identify: regret, anger. They planned to share their discovery with every civilization they encountered. And you disagreed, Min Kai ventured. I saw the inevitable outcome, the Empress replied. Unlimited power in the hands of unlimited beings would lead to unlimited chaos. Different civilizations with different values would rewrite reality according to their preferences. Contradictory changes would tear the fabric of existence apart. The multiverse would not merely return to its state of chaotic collision, it would dissolve entirely into information soup, unable to maintain coherent structure. The display showed catastrophic scenarios, planets ripping apart as their physical laws changed repeatedly, stars exploding as their fusion constants were rewritten, entire galaxies blinking out of existence as competing reality alterations created irresolvable paradoxes. I was one of them, the Empress said, her voice softer now. A scientist who saw further than my colleagues. I tried to convince them of the danger. They would not listen. They believed in the fundamental goodness of all sentient beings, that given godlike power, most would choose creation over destruction, harmony over discord. A noble belief, Minkai observed. A naive one, the Empress countered. I had studied the histories of countless civilizations. I knew that even the most enlightened societies contained individuals who sought power for its own sake, who would sacrifice anything and anyone for their ambitions. Give such beings the power to rewrite reality, and eventual catastrophe becomes not merely possible, but inevitable. The scene shifted again, showing a lone figure, recognizably a younger version of the Empress in her humanoid form, working in secret, creating a device of incredible complexity. I developed a way to channel all reality-altering power through a single nexus, myself. I used their own language against them, creating a meta-word that would override all others. That would make me the sole arbiter of cosmic law. Minkai watched in horror as the young Empress activated her device, sending a pulse of energy across her world. The other originators fell to the ground, their bodies dissolving into pure information that was absorbed into the Empress's form. The planet itself began to break apart, its substance feeding the Empress's transformation into the cosmic being she now was. You didn't just defeat them, Minkai whispered. You consumed them. I preserved their knowledge and potential. The Empress corrected. They live on in me, their understanding and creativity contributing to my stewardship of the multiverse. It was the only way to ensure stability. And the word I discovered? The Empress's energy form contracted again, focusing even more intensely. A failsafe they created in their final moments. A word designed to unlock the reality-altering language for all beings simultaneously, to democratize cosmic power as they had originally intended. If spoken here, at the apex, with full understanding of its meaning and purpose, it would undo everything I have built over 30 billion years. It would free the multiverse from your control, Minkai said. It would condemn the multiverse to chaos and eventual dissolution, the Empress countered. Is that what you want, scholar? To be remembered, if anyone remains to remember, as the being who destroyed existence itself. Minkai stood silent, overwhelmed by the responsibility that had somehow fallen to him. He was no revolutionary, no cosmic arbiter, just a scholar who had stumbled upon knowledge too vast for any mortal to wield with confidence. I offer you a choice, the Empress said. Surrender the fragment to me, renounce the word you have discovered, and join my court as an honored advisor. Your knowledge of pre-convergence history would be invaluable, and your mortal perspective would help me better understand the needs of my subjects. In return, I will grant you near immortality and access to knowledge beyond your wildest dreams. And if I refuse? Then speak the word, the Empress challenged. Unleash chaos upon the multiverse. Prove that I was wrong about the responsibility of sentient beings when given unlimited power. It was a test. Minkai realized. The Empress believed he would not dare take such a risk. That faced with the potential consequences, he would choose the safety of the status quo, as countless beings before him must have done when faced with similar choices. But something about her explanation nagged at him. If the forgotten word would truly cause cosmic dissolution, why had she not simply destroyed the fragment when she first saw it? Why bring him to the apex, where its power would be greatest? Why offer him a place at her court? Unless she feared the word for another reason entirely. The Time-Space Guardian's words echoed in his memory. The multiverse was not meant to have a single, eternal ruler. Cosmic balance requires change, renewal, and sometimes conflict. What if the Empress's perfect order was itself a form of cosmic illness? What if 30 billion years of stagnation under a single will had drained the multiverse of the creative chaos necessary for true growth and evolution? Min Kai closed his eyes, searching within himself for the courage to act on his convictions rather than his fears. When he opened them again, he had made his decision. "I cannot accept your offer. Your eternity," he said quietly. "Not because I wish to destroy, but because I believe in the right of all sentient beings to shape their own destinies, even if that means risking failure." Before the Empress could respond, Min Kai spoke the forgotten word, not in the casual, academic way he had done before, but with full understanding of its meaning and purpose, infusing it with his belief in the fundamental right of all beings to participate in the creation of reality. The word echoed across the apex, amplified by the convergence of all realities. It resonated through dimensions, across universes, into the past and future simultaneously. For a moment that seemed both instantaneous and eternal, everything stopped, all motion, all time, all change throughout the multiverse frozen in perfect stillness. Then, with a sound like the birth of a trillion stars, the cosmic energy that was the Empress exploded outward. Min Kai was certain he would be annihilated in that moment. But instead, he found himself surrounded by a protective bubble of golden light, the time-space guardian, using its bond with the court to shield him from the cosmic backlash. When the explosion subsided, the Empress still existed, but changed. Her cosmic form had contracted, diminished. Much of its energy dispersed across the multiverse. Before Min Kai's eyes, she collapsed back into her humanoid form, still radiating power but at a fraction of her former intensity. "What have you done?" she gasped, her voice no longer resonating through reality itself, but merely through the air between them. "I don't fully understand," Min Kai admitted, "but I believe I've released what you've been hoarding for 30 billion years, the power to shape reality, returned to all sentient beings who can comprehend it." "You've doomed us all," the Empress said, but her tone lacked conviction. She looked around at the apex, which still existed despite her predictions of cosmic dissolution. "Unless—" The golden light surrounding Min Kai coalesced into the form of the time-space guardian. "Unless the originators were right all along," it said. "Unless the multiverse is more resilient than you feared, Ngach Nian. Unless sentient beings are more responsible than you believed." "Impossible," the Empress whispered. "The simulations showed inevitable destruction." "Simulations created by one mind, yours," the Guardian countered. "Perhaps your fear of chaos blinded you to other possibilities." Around them, the cosmic display had changed. The multiverse still existed, its countless universes still connected by threads of energy. But the pattern was changing, becoming more complex, more varied. Some universes were drawing closer together, their laws harmonizing. Others were drifting apart, developing unique properties. It was not the perfect, controlled synchronization the Empress had maintained, but neither was it the catastrophic dissolution she had feared. "It's adapting," she said, wonder breaking through her dismay. "Self-organizing, as the originators believed it would," the Guardian confirmed. "They understood that the multiverse is not merely a construct of information, it is a living system, capable of learning, growing, and healing. Your control preserved it, but also prevented its natural evolution." Min Kai watched in awe as new patterns emerged in the cosmic display. Beautiful, complex arrangements that neither he nor, apparently, the Empress had imagined possible. "What happens now?" he asked. The Empress straightened, her expression shifting from shock to a more measured consideration. Though diminished, she still radiated power beyond mortal comprehension. "Now," she said, "I must learn to be something other than the absolute ruler of all existence." She turned to Min Kai. "And you, scholar, must help me." "Me, I'm just—" "You are the one who had the courage to speak the forgotten word despite the risks." She interrupted. "You balance skepticism with hope, caution with conviction. These are qualities I lost long ago in my certainty that I alone could protect the multiverse. She gestured, and a portal opened nearby, a gateway back to the time-space court. Come. There is much to be done. The multiverse is awakening to new possibilities, and civilizations long held in stasis will soon reach for the stars again. They will need guidance, not control, history, not censorship, truth, not imperial doctrine. Min Kai hesitated. How can I trust that you've truly changed? That this isn't merely a new strategy to regain complete control? The Empress smiled, not the rare, dangerous smile she'd shown him before, but a genuine expression that made her seem almost mortal. You can't. Trust requires time and consistent action to build. But consider this. If I wished to destroy you, I could still do so, diminished though I am. Instead, I offer partnership. The time-space guardian pulsed with light. I will remain as witness and reminder, it said. The court will transform from a seat of absolute power to a center of learning and cooperation. Min Kai looked from the guardian to the Empress, then at the cosmic display showing the awakening multiverse. His scholar's heart thrilled at the possibilities, not just for knowledge, but for understanding on a scale no individual had achieved since the originators themselves. I accept, he said finally, not as your subject, but as your colleague in this new endeavor. The Empress nodded, acceptance and perhaps a hint of relief in her expression. Then let us begin the work of the next 30 billion years, not as ruler and ruled, but as guardians of a multiverse that belongs to all sentient beings. As they stepped through the portal back to the court, Min Kai felt the weight of the fragment containing the forgotten word in his robe. It would need to be preserved, studied, shared with others who could understand its significance. He would become a teacher of the language that could shape reality, not to create chaos, but to invite all sentient beings into the cosmic conversation that had been monopolized for too long. In the millennia that followed, the multiverse underwent a renaissance of creativity and growth. The Empress, now known as Ngoch Nian, the Guide, rather than the Eternal Empress, worked alongside Min Kai to establish the College of Cosmic Principles, a place where beings from across the multiverse could learn the responsibility that came with the power to shape reality. The Phantom Guardians were transformed into messengers, carrying knowledge rather than enforcing obedience. The Court of Celestial Advisors expanded to include representatives from thousands of civilizations, ensuring that no single perspective dominated cosmic governance. And Min Kai, once a humble scholar seeking only knowledge, became known as the Pattern Master, the keeper of the forgotten word and teacher of the language that bound all reality together. Under his guidance, a new generation of scholars explored the pre-convergence era, uncovering truths long hidden and wisdom long forgotten. Yet in the deepest chambers of the transformed time-space court, in dimensions accessible only to those with the highest understanding, Ngoch Nian sometimes stood alone, watching the multiverse unfold in ways she had never permitted during her reign. And sometimes, in moments of perfect honesty with herself, she admitted that the scholars of old had been right. The greatest act of creation was not control, but release, allowing all beings to participate in the ongoing story of existence. And sometimes, when no one else was present, she even smiled at the beauty of what she had once feared most, the glorious, terrifying freedom of an unshackled multiverse, writing its own story across the canvas of eternity. But beyond the newly awakened multiverse, beyond even the perception of beings as powerful as Ngoch Nian and Min Kai, shadows stirred in the void between realities. Ancient entities that predated even the originators watched with cold interest as power shifted and barriers weakened. Entities that had waited patiently through 30 billion years of the Empress's rigid order, knowing that eventually all patterns break, all rulers fall, and all doors, once closed, eventually reopen. They had a language of their own, one that even the forgotten word could not override. And now, with the multiverse in flux, they prepared to speak it for the first time since before the dawn of recorded history. The next chapter of cosmic evolution was about to begin.